Welcome to a news episode of Sports Talk Central. I'm your host, Adib Mahmood, with my normal co-host Hunter. And today we're going to be talking about the Super Bowl, and we're going to be talking about the NFL head coach searches. So let's talk about the NFL head coach searches. All 10 all 10 teams that needed a head coach now have found their own. Just to recap, Dolphins bring in Halfley, Falcons bring in Stefanski, Bills bring in Joe Brady, Giants with John Harbaugh, Steelers with Mike McCarthy, Minter goes to the Ravens, Mike LaFleur goes to the Cardinals. Yeah, Kubiak goes to the Raiders.
Yeah, that's not official yet, Adi, but it's going to be official this upcoming week, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Am I missing other teams?
Those are the
Cleveland with Todd Monken.
Yep, Todd Monken. And then did we miss someone by accident? Tennessee, Robert Saleh. Yeah.
Yeah. So just like we'll save the Ravens and Steelers one to the last part of this discussion. But what were your thoughts on these head coaches, and their teams?
Yeah, I still like the Bills thing kind of just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You're firing McDermott to promote an offensive coordinator that it feels like a lot of Bills fans aren't really too high on. I don't know. I feel like that's just kind of making a move for the sake of making a move. That whole operation really made no sense to me, Adi. Like, I understand the owner was upset with the way the season ended, and if you watch that press conference, that was a doozy. But you fire the head coach, but then you give a promotion to the GM who's responsible for one of the worst wide receiver groups in the NFL. It's very
And you
strange.
bumped him up, and you promoted him.
And like I said, he got promoted for that. If there was someone to fire, I think it was him. The Dolphins, they got Halfley. I understand why a lot of people like Halfley. I don't know. Like, just going back to his days in Boston College, I kind of felt he was a little overrated, but he'll have a chance to make this work. Apparently, he interviewed very well. No surprise for LaFleur in Arizona. Felt like it was with Arizona and Vegas. It felt like one was going to get LaFleur, one was going to get Kubiak. I think Kubiak was, in my mind, he was kind of deciding between the two, and now looks like he's going to go to the Raiders, and that's a really nice coup for the Raiders, by the way. Like, that job, it felt like to me wasn't that desirable, but now you have him coming in, and he's done a great job with the Seahawks offense this year. He's going to get Fernando Mendoza number 1 overall. You do have Tom Brady there as a minority owner to work with. So I like that hire quite a bit, honestly, for the Raiders. The Falcons getting Stefanski makes sense. You bring in a veteran coach who I think honestly did a decent job in Cleveland. I understand why he was the scapegoat there, but if you look at the rosters these last couple of years, especially, they have not been very pretty rosters. So I think he's going to be decent with that Falcons offense. He has a lot of, good players to work with. Good for Robert Saleh getting another opportunity. It's not with the Jets, Adit, so he doesn't have to deal with that cursed franchise. He gets to work with Cam Ward, so curious to see, of course, how that goes. We'll discuss the Ravens and the Steelers here in a minute, but already discussed the Bills, the Browns going to Todd Monken. That one's fascinating to me. I'm not really sure how that one is going to go because, again, like, you look at that offense, man, not a lot of talent on that unit, and they still don't have a true franchise quarterback. Like, I know Shedeur got a lot of time at the end of the season, but I still got to see a lot more from him. So you have all that. Those are just some of my main miscellaneous thoughts on a lot of the head coaching hires outside of the Ravens and the Steelers.
Yeah. So I think with the Browns, that was a weird thing because it seemed like Jim Schwartz was someone they were trying to keep, and now it's going to be a requirement, and it made sense with Todd Monken. If he was the head coach, he would keep Jim Schwartz, but obviously it was revealed yesterday that Jim Schwartz tendered his resignation. So that one's funny. It's always like they're saying, "Hey, look at this great offense." Like, Todd Monken's a good offensive mind, but let's also keep in mind he had Lamar Jackson as his quarterback. Like, Shedeur, I don't think he's going to Shedeur in a few years, and if you want to be really optimistic, he could be really good. But you're talking about a second-year quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. Deshaun Watson is still there. Don't know how much longer he's going to play, if he even plays another snap for them. But the other thing that was a little weird about the Brown searches, apparently they were so analytical. I don't know if you saw this,
I did.
but they had to apparently do some homework
It was
for
a
the
whole
interview.
bunch of like questionnaire stuff and all this other thing during the interview process. That thing was just wild to follow. Like it looked like it was going
Right.
to be Shieldhouse from the Rams. No, looked like it was potentially going to be Grant Udinski from the Jaguars. Nope. And then they kind of just pivoted to Todd Monken. That's what it felt like. And then once Jim Schwartz knew he wasn't getting the job, he just said, well, see ya. Because I think for Himadi, I felt like he was being strung along. That's what I think he was really mad about. Like, hey, like they were probably thinking like, hey, like, you're the favorite. And that's why he was really happy. And then when they pivoted to Todd Monken, I think that's when obviously you saw the reports where he cleared out his office. He said, I'm done. And yeah, voila.
You know what? You know what I think it could have been. Like you're kind of on the right track, but I think it part of it could have also been, all right, you're considering me for head coach. Cool.
Mm.
All right, but you know what? If you were going, and this is just if I'm in Jim Schwartz's shoes, if you went with a younger offensive mind like Shieldhouse, I understand why you have to do that.
Yeah.
He is a younger offensive mind. He is the complete opposite of me, and I get it. There's that long term answer, but then you went out and got an older, an offensive mind, but an older offensive mind, and I believe is around the same age as Jim Schwartz. Now, it's a weird thing for me to say this part, which is essentially why would he be okay with Nate Shieldhouse or Udinski? I think that when you are getting older, if someone that's the less like you get passed over by someone and it's the person that they hire is not like you at all, you can understand it. And you can understand in this game you want someone for the next 10 to 20 years, that makes sense. A Grant Udinski makes sense for the Browns. But Todd Monken, like if they bring in Jim Schwartz and he struggles, they're going to can his ass in like 3 years or 4 years. If Todd Monken comes in and struggles, he's going to get canned in 3 years. It just kind of feels like more of a lateral move, and I think that was the insult. So I think he respects Todd Monken, but it's the situation that he was in where Todd Monken being chosen for this job was a little bit of an affront.
Might have lost a deet here potentially. I'm not super sure. I don't know if it's his Wi-Fi or
Yeah, okay.
there we go.
Yeah. So what I was saying is, so the other thing was it was also weird seeing they were very analytical, but yet they go as an older guy that doesn't seem like the more analytical type. So maybe they wanted a more analytical mind, and they weren't comfortable, so you just go with the safer option, Todd Monken. Um, the Cardinals, you got to figure out with Kyler Murray what you want to do there. So I think Mike LaFleur, I know that he wasn't very good in with the Jets as their OC, but I believe that was the Zach Wilson era Jets. You can't really do much with that. We'll see what happens with Kyler Murray if he's still there. Jeff Hafley, again, friend of the GM.
Yeah.
Players respect the guy. The Dolphins were kind of in that a really weird position. Harbaugh and the Giants, they wanted a stabilizing force. They wanted to kind of not bring back Tom Coughlin, but like kind of get like an older mind. So I do like that. The Titans with Robert Saleh, again, that's a rebuild. Robert Saleh wasn't very good with the Jets, but he's been solid with the 49ers. His defenses have been really good. I like that spot for him as a rebuild opportunity. I mean, I like Clint Kubiak with the Raiders. Good developer, of course, like good offense, good developer. You got Brock Bowers, you got Genty. You get a nice receiver in the second round. You can start, and then you focus on the O line. I mean, look, people forget about this. Like, let's see what the Chiefs do next year. Let's see what the Chargers do. And the Broncos, I mean, you're going to get Bo Nix back. And Peyton's there. The Raiders could, in the right moves, they could be second, third in that division. And who knows what Kansas City will look like. So, so I think we can move on to the Ravens and Steelers at this point. So, like, Ravens obviously bring in Jesse Minter, younger, very analytically minded, defensive minded coach. I'm very impressed, and I mean, look, I've texted you this. I thought he was going to be the guy to replace Harbaugh like over a year ago.
Yeah,
I think he's his coordinators that he's hired are good. Anthony Weaver was a head coach. He's going to be a head coach for someone, but
I think within the next couple of years, he's going to be a head coach. He was a finalist for the Pittsburgh job, and he'd also got a couple other second interviews elsewhere.
Cardinals.
Right, yeah, Cardinals as well. Yeah, I don't think you're going to have him for very long. I think 2 years tops before you have to find a new DC. He's going to be a head coach soon.
Yeah, and if he gets hired as a head coach, good for him. He's earned it, and also Ravens will get 2 third-round picks as well. So smart move. We'll talk a little bit about some of the assistant staff, but the surprise is that you would think they go with an older offensive-minded coordinator, but the fact is, I don't think neither of us have this in the bingo card. I'm assuming we are both older, or we're both around at least the same age as Declan Doyle. Look, but I do like the fact that he's been in the Sean Payton offense for a few years. He went to Ben Johnson. We know that Ben Johnson and his offense, and from what the Bears were saying, what the players were saying, he wasn't calling plays, but he was doing the game planning. He was doing the detail. He seems like that type of guy that will stay up until midnight every single day to figure out patterns and how to create a game plan. And then also, if you look at the staff that and then if you bring in the staff, so I do like to hire, he is potentially someone who's 1 or 2 years away from a head coach. So the Ravens might have to retool some of their coordinators at some point. But let's look at their assistant staffs here. I mean, Dwayne Ledford, who's their line coach and run game coordinator, he was really good with like that Falcons O-line and that run game was solid the last couple years. Obviously, Eddie Faulkner from the Steelers.
Yep.
He actually worked with Ledford back in NC State. The run game, I mean, obviously you have the problem, and I think you can kind of confirm this as well from how you've seen the game. It kind of felt like last few years, it was like the run game was predicated on Lamar and his running ability, more so on the running backs. This might be more of that balance. I think with Ledford and Faulkner, you can have that balance where Lamar's athletic ability helps you, but it's not the driving force. Joe Lombardi is a senior offensive assistant. Obviously, he's got OC experience. He comes from a football family. Zach Grossi is the tight ends coach. He came from the Broncos. Sean Flaherty is the assistant O-line coach. Patrick Kramer is the quality control guy. Marcus Brady, who was with the Colts for a year as another offense coordinator. He's the pass game coordinator. So now they just need to figure out the wide receiver coach. The defensive coordinator, and then defensive coordinator is Anthony Weaver, like I mentioned. Tyler Santucci is retained as the inside linebackers coach. He's another guy that's had a younger guy with 3 or 4 years of experience as a defensive coordinator at college at Duke and Texas A&M. Harlan Bauer, outside linebackers coach. Obviously, good connection here with Aeneas Peebles, who played at Virginia Tech for a year, but he was actually at Duke the year before.
Yep.
Bauer was at Duke at the same time Peebles was, so we do have development there. Lou Esposito from Michigan, he is the defensive line coach. you see a lot of these college guys here. So Lou Esposito, Santucci, Bowers, Mike Mickens. Um, if you followed college football, you know that you might know that this guy is one of the driving forces of why Notre Dame was able to create all these great defensive backs. That's a huge get from PJ Volker was a defensive coordinator at Navy for a few years. Miles Taylor, um, defensive backs coach, and then they lost Daniel Stern, who was their game management analytics guy, to Cleveland, but they're replacing him with Charlie Gilman, who was with the Colts. So he's going to be the third down, like the analytics, third down, fourth down guy they have on staff. They're keeping Randy Brown in terms of senior special teams coach. They just need a special teams coordinator. Could be Anthony Levine. Could be one of these coordinators that are playing tomorrow. So they've been busy. But what are your thoughts on some of these hires the Ravens have made and also the Steelers?
Yeah, I really like the coordinators that the Ravens, especially hired. I think Doyle, now that he's going to get the chance to really call plays here, have that experience with Ben Johnson. You talked about Sean Payton. I think he's ready for this after spending a year also with Johnson and seeing how Johnson operated things. He's been kind of looked at a up and comer in terms of a play caller. So really curious to see how he does with Lamar and the rest of that offense. If he does really well, he's going to get head coaching interviews pretty soon. Anthony Weaver, again, I think this year, when you look at Weaver, his defense by the metrics wasn't that good, but he also really didn't have a lot of talent to work with in Miami. A year or two ago, his defense was definitely better. So now that he has some more talent to work with and they're probably going to make some upgrades overall, I think he's a really solid DC. Like when it became clear that he was a finalist for Pittsburgh and, it was potentially between him, Brian Flores, and Mike McCarthy, I was warming up to Anthony Weaver a bit more just because when I looked at his defense this year, I was like, oh, like it just wasn't really that good. But, I was able to, watch some content from other people, look into it a bit more. And I was like, okay, like there's actually something to really work with here. And obviously the Steelers went in a different direction, but I think he's going to be a head coach really soon. There's a reason why he interviews, really well. It's, he's a great talker about the game of football. He's also a really good coach in general. So I really do think his time is coming in terms of being a head coach here pretty soon. Again, just even going back to before his time with Miami, I'm pretty sure he also played in the AFC North as well.
He was the second round pick for the Ravens the same year that Ed Reed was the first round.
That's a really cool fun fact. So it's kind of like a full circle moment coming back to coach a team that he played for. And I really do think the Ravens really needed to upgrade in that defensive coordinator spot. Weaver definitely is. Again, really good coach, and I think he's going to be a head coach at some point here pretty soon. I was reading some reports from a couple other people around the league, and they compared him to Dan Campbell as like a CEO, basically. So I think he's going to really command a lot of respect in that locker room, especially for the defense and all that good stuff. So again, that's a really good hire. Declan Doyle is the same thing. When it comes to the Steelers, they're really filling out their staff as well. I'm not going to get into all of them. They just hired their offensive coordinator, Brian Angelico,
yeah.
I think that's how you pronounce his
the
last
Vikings
name.
tight ends coach.
Yes, he was from the Minnesota Vikings, tight ends coach and passing game coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings for the last few years. What I like about it is that will he be calling plays? No, he's not. But the thing is, he's learned under Kevin O'Connell, who I think is one of the top play callers in the NFL. So he'll really get to help game plan Mike McCarthy every single week. And, obviously McCarthy's going to call plays, but it's going to be him really getting the game plans going and all that good stuff. And maybe there comes a point in time where he does have to call plays for another team, because I don't think McCarthy's ever going to pass that off to someone. He's always called plays throughout his coaching tenure, but this is still someone, comes from the Kevin O'Connell tree. So again, I think he's not a play caller, but it still seems like to me he's going to be an upgrade over Arthur Smith, who I thought was very overrated. Some Steelers fans felt like he was fine. Not me, man. I was not a fan of Arthur Smith at all. They're keeping Tom Arth, the quarterback's coach. James Campen, 21 years of experience as the offensive line coach. Adam Henry as the wide receivers coach. And Patrick Graham as the defensive coordinator. That's also one I really wanted to focus on too. When you look at the Raiders defense this past year, like people were trying to be like, oh my God, like, why are you hiring him? That was Pete Carroll's defense, man. And they were awful. You get Patrick Graham to a unit with a lot more talent. I think you're going to see him flourish a bit more. I think he is going to be an upgrade over Terrell Austin. Even just a couple of years ago, his defenses were pretty solid. And like he's been, to me, a solid DC throughout his career. So I do think this is going to be a good fit here. Honestly, I like both DC hires for the Steelers and Ravens. I think Patrick Graham is going to do a good job here, and I think Anthony Weaver is going to do a really solid job in Baltimore. Joe Witt Jr. is the head coach of the secondary, but also the assistant head coach. His defenses, especially lately, have not been that good, but having him in assistant role, totally fine. They also finally got, what'd you say?
That was like, I remember when he was named to the Commanders,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people were saying that's like he was a big part with the Cowboys.
Right.
So I just want to bring that up.
And I know a lot of like the big pushback from some people. Oh my God, McCarthy's just hiring a bunch of his friends. Some of these guys have Pittsburgh ties. I feel like most coaches, Adit, hire their friends in some capacity.
They're
like that's how it is.
They are the most familiar with them, so therefore they're going to be the first one on their mind. They're going to be the first one that fit their scheme. Like it only becomes a problem if you see largely average results. Like if this was a like the Giants hired Greg Roman to be like a senior offensive assistant. And by the way, we didn't even talk about that thing. It's like Matt Nagy is their offensive coordinator. Greg Roman is their senior offensive assistant. Yikes. But that would be a nepotism hire. It was because Greg Roman's good for a year or two, but there's a lot more negative. Like if you're hiring your friends and they're consistently good, keep hiring your friends.
Right. And that's just how it works for not even just football, college football, hockey, basketball, baseball, the list goes down. Again, I'm not going to get into all the hires. I do think this one's cool though. Domata Peko, defensive line coach. That's really cool that he's going to be the defensive line coach of the Steelers.
He knows the AFC North really well.
That's a really cool hire. Like of like the assistants, not the coordinators, of the assistants. That's one of my favorite hires so far. I think he's going to do a really good job with the defensive line. Defensive quality control coach, Pat Riley. Hey, we also have a defensive pass game coordinator, man. The Steelers are finally catching up to to 2026 in terms of how to build a coaching staff. Because when you looked at Mike Tomlin's, you didn't have these type of roles. Like this staff that Mike McCarthy's building, it's probably going to be the biggest coaching staff the Steelers have ever had, in my opinion. And they're still not done. They hired their special teams coordinator, Danny Smith isn't coming back. They're going to hire a few more as well. I would not be surprised to see, a passing game coordinator come in here and all that good stuff. But, again, I know some people have said, oh, he's just hiring his friends. A lot of these hires, at least on paper, seem fairly solid. So for as much as, I didn't like the hire at the time, I especially didn't like the process. That's what really bugged me. It was the process that got to that point where I'm like, you just didn't need to rush it. But it's over. It's done what they hired him. For as much as I didn't like the hire and I still have major questions about it, I do like the staff that he is building around him. So we'll see. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think I was going to ask, like, do you think these special teams are going to take a step back with Danny Smith not being there, or are you just seeing who's going to be the next guy?
We'll see. I mean, it's funny. Danny Smith was really good at scheming up, punt blocks, especially great at that. But I felt the kickoff return game had really struggled under him. The punt return game had not been that good. It felt like every single time they had a good one, like a good punt or kickoff return, it was called back for holding. And, I've been saying that a lot for other teams as well, but just felt like there were too many blunders. So this may be an unpopular opinion. I wasn't too mad about him leaving. great personality. He's hilarious on the sidelines, and he is a good coach. But it felt like the Steelers, they still needed a change there. So I'm fine with him moving on. I'm curious to see if the new special teams coordinator can unlock some things in the kickoff and the punt return game that need to be better.
Yeah, so we're going to move on to the Super Bowl, but also I do want to bring up the Eagles did not have they were not trying to replace their head coach, but we found out a couple days ago Jeff Stoutland, one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL, he's leaving. Vic Fangio apparently was considering retirement. Everyone and their mother turned down the Eagles offense coordinator position. And we don't know what the AJ situation is. AJ Brown. That is something's up. There's some ego issues going on with Philly, and the Vic Fangio retirement stuff. Yikes! If they only were able to hold that for a year, I mean, Jim, like, you think let's had he retired, do you think Jim Schwartz would have been the first call?
I think so. Yes, it makes a lot of sense for him to go back there. So yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Super Bowl. Obviously, Super Bowl tomorrow. Patriots, Seahawks. For me, Seahawks, highly efficient scoring offense, great scoring defense. Mike McDonald has got that defense humming. My keys to the game, you do have two good quarterbacks. I mean, obviously, Drake May, 72% completion percentage. Sam Darnold, he's reinvented himself. I don't know what his contract situation is, but he could be in line for a big, like somewhat of a biggish contract, but a big contract that would still allow Seattle to build around him better than other big.
He has 2 years left on his contract. It was a 3-year deal that he signed during free agency.
So I would imagine if he continues this next year, he's probably in line for another extension. But again, it probably wouldn't be a massive one that would cripple a team. It would still be in that good middle ground.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like where it's like you're still paying a quarterback a lot of money, but it's not like if with the Ravens with Lamar and Josh Allen with the Bills, it's not going to be like that is a massive contract. But yeah, I think that's with Sam Darnold. I think that the key is if you can. And I know the championship games, the perception is the Seahawks are going to run over the Patriots because the Patriots scored a lot and their defense was really good. But let's keep in mind, it was C.J. Stroud just giving the game away. That was not on the Texans defense. That was on C.J. Stroud, and also. It was a backup quarterback for the Broncos. But what are your general thoughts on this game?
I think Seattle is the better team going into this. I think their offense, as we have talked about a lot, has been fantastic this year. Sam Darnold is having the best year of his career by far, and he has a chance to really stick it to Minnesota. Like, if he wins the Super Bowl, and I think they already are regretting how they handled it. I think if they could do a do-over, they would sign Darnold. I think they made a mistake letting him go. And if he wins the Super Bowl on Sunday, I would love to be a fly on the wall in the Minnesota front office in front of their just everyone around there and Kevin O'Connell to see what they would be saying if they were watching. Just because I think if you injected them with some truth serum, I think they would say, yeah, we probably should have brought Darnold back after how great he was in Kevin O'Connell's offense too. But, I like the way Clint Kubiak is calling games. Seattle, they have quite a few weapons. I like New England's defense quite a bit. I just don't know for a full game if they can really slow down Seattle's offense. I think 4.5 is a pretty good spread.
Yep.
I'll take Seattle by a touchdown in this game. I think they'll win. It's dubbed the rematch from obviously a little over a decade ago when we all know what happened at the end of that game. But I'm going to take Seattle here. I think they have the better offense, and I think their defense will do enough to disrupt Drake May as well. Give me Seattle by a touchdown.
Yeah, no, I have Seattle winning this. again, like I said, I don't think they're going to boat race the Patriots. And I know based off the championship games, it could look like that.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be as bad as last year's Super Bowl was, which was over at like halftime, basically.
Between the Seahawks and the 49ers this year.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be like that either.
Yeah, but you know what? I'll put it this way. I trust Mike McDonald's defense to slow down Drake May more than Mike Vrabel's defense to slow down Sam Darnold. And look, Sam Darnold could very well struggle. But I just trust the Seahawks defense, even though Amenwari is going to be playing, but we don't know how. Clearly, he's not going to be at 100%. But yeah, like Kenneth Walker looked really good. JSN looks really good. Mm-hmm. Let's not forget. Cooper Kupp was the Super Bowl MVP a few years ago. And he's not even
Rashid Shaheed, man. He's also been fantastic for them since they acquired him.
Yeah. And then again, think about it, right? If Cooper Kupp on most teams, we would be saying this offense is great. They got Cooper Kupp. We're saying the Seahawks offense is great. They got JSN. They got Rashid. They got Walker. They got Cooper Kupp. That's what makes the Seahawks really dangerous. And I think Diggs, is going to get his. Obviously, the running backs for New England look good. Matt Collins, I think, can make a couple of big catches. But I think it could be I think it might look close, but I do think that Seahawks defense is going to carry the game in, I would say, midway through the third quarter. I think you're going to start to see the Seahawks defense really start to dial up the pressure. And you might even see, I'll say this, I think you're going to see a turnover. The Seahawks defense will commit at least one turnover between midway through the third quarter to the end of the game. I think those are realistic predictions.
I think so too. I'll go 27-20. What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go 31-23. So
okay.
But yeah, so we'll end the show on that note. But just quick reactions outside the NFL. Just quick reactions. Framber Valdez, 3 years, $115 million to the Detroit Tigers. On that one,
it was fun seeing the Pirates in on there for a little bit. Did you see that report earlier this week? The Pirates were never going for that type of contract, but that's my main reaction. It was just like, oh, the Pirates were in on him, and then you see that contract handed out, and it's like, no, they weren't really in on him, only for their price. You think they were ever going to give him that type of contract? Hell no.
Yeah, no, and I'll say this. I know the media was saying the Orioles are in on Framber. They're the favorites for Framber. I don't think they were really in on Framber. And I know people are going to say, well, Mike Elias has that connection with him. It could be negative because we all know he had the whole thing was crossing up the catcher. And there was those reports that if you listen to the Astros radio people, he's a little bit of a head case and he's kind of he needed to see a psychologist. He's a little hot-headed. I don't know if I want that with Gunnar Henderson and Rutschman and all those guys. Also, the Orioles make a trade for Blaze Alexander, adding on to another whitish-sounding name to go into collection of Colton, Gunnar, Adley, Blaze. They got a dude named Maverick. So, super athletic, infielder type, can play the outfield. Really interested to see what the move is. Kate Stroud's a pretty good reliever, and he had options. I wonder if this means they're going to bring in a couple of other guys. We'll also see what they're going to do with starting pitcher. Nationals, I don't think they've made any big moves in the last week
or so. Not since Mackenzie Gore, no.
So next week we'll talk about more baseball related. This was I just wanted to bring up the Framber Valdez thing because that was more recent and that's a bigger free agent. But if you have time, depending on the schedule, we'll see you guys next week.
Right. We'll talk to you guys next week.